Hey everybody, welcome back to Rusty Wrench Restorations. I'm Steve, and today we're going to be covering the removal of steering clutches. So, the last video, we removed both final drive housings. This one over here is the housing that was on the left side of the unit, and as you can see, everything turns and spins free, no issues. I didn't have any issues with that final drive. The right side, on the other hand, was a different story. I could clearly see that the tracks were not quite aligned. The rear sprocket was rubbing against the safety stops, and it was actually touching the back of the rear roller. So we figured there was going to be some issues with this, and then of course we found that the final drive housing itself has a huge crack in it. So there's definitely an issue with this final drive. I try to turn this one. It does move, but you can see it gets hard and hung up. So there's probably an issue here with either the big bull bearing or bull gear that's in here, the bearings for the axle shaft, or for there's a couple different shafts in this top section here. There's the steering clutch drive shaft, which is here, and then behind that there's actually another shorter one. It's your final drive gear shaft. Let me look in the book here. I want to give you bad information. Yeah, the short one inside there is your final drive shaft, so that's going to be in a different video when we tear this whole final drive apart. But today I just want to focus on clutches. It looks like you can probably see a difference between these two. This one here that was in the left drive housing is in a lot better condition, not as much rust or buildup, whereas this one that was on the right hand side had a lot. What does that mean? Probably nothing. This one I think has been gone through before. I can see inside here the fiber discs look to be almost brand new. They've got a light tan color to them, and the metal discs that are in there have a little bit of surface rust, but for the most part they look almost brand new. This side, on the other hand, the fiber discs are very stained, lots of built up rust on the metal discs here. So I have a feeling that either this one hasn't been rebuilt, or the other thing it could be is just lots of water or moisture intrusion on this right side final drive housing. So, again, that could have been part of what our problem was. There may not be much oil left in here. There could have been water left in the final drive, and it could have froze, and that could have been what cracked this housing. They could have backed into a tree or a rock. I mean, who knows, right? If these things could talk, right? Anyway, so today's video is going to be pretty brief. It's just pretty much how to remove the steering clutch assembly. In the event that you have to replace steering clutches, you may not have to go through and break down the whole final drive assembly and replace bearings and seals. So that's going to be a separate video. Again, today is just pretty much the steering clutches. So these were made by a company called Auburn. They're in Auburn, Indiana. Do a little wire brushing on here. You can get their info on there, and it's the same as what's on this one here. I'm kind of going against what I normally tell everybody, is to get everything cleaned up really good and spray Croil, let the Croil sit. And guess what? I didn't do any of that. So there's some mud dauber nests on here and some rust. I'm not going to be able to get the sockets in here if I don't clean this stuff out of there. But we'll see how it goes. This is the worst one, so we may break some bolts. We may not. I'm going to do this one tomorrow. It looks a little newer, so I'll go ahead and take my own advice here and spray down these bolts with some Croil. Kind of pointless to spray this one we're working on today, because it's not going to have time to soak in there, but who knows, maybe we'll get lucky, right? So anyway, 6 bolts that hold the pressure plate onto the brake drum assembly. It's a 1/2 inch, I believe, a 1/2 inch drive, and we may need to get something to keep the clutch from spinning. Let me take this extension off my ratchet also. That'll help me out a bit. So basically what you can do, you can get some type of bar or whatever, put it on this back side. I still have I'll flip it over so you can see this here. The studs and the bolts for holding the sprocket onto the drive flange, they're still there. So basically on this back side, I can just put a bar in there to keep it from spinning, right? So stick that in there. Hopefully get this turning the right direction. He still wants to fight me. There we go. There's one. This is when the nice electric drive tools come in handy. The impact. I'm gonna work harder instead of smarter today, apparently. Let me shove this in here and let it hold itself. Turn it down. Drive against the ground. There we go. All right. Now you'll notice, well, you may or not notice, but as you start to loosen these bolts, oh boy, the pressure plate is going to start coming up off of the drive here. Remember, it's spring loaded, right? So the engine clutch, your main drive clutch, the pressure plate. Come on. A little extra oomph here. The pressure plate is bolted onto the flywheel for the drive engine, right? This one here, it's bolted onto the brake drum. So as we loosen these, the spring tension is going to come off. So be mindful of that. It's not anything that's going to like spring back and hit you or anything like that, but just know that you don't want to take these bolts out completely. You want to loosen them all up a little bit first. I think this is the last one you got left to try to break free. There we go. So you just want to take them out a little bit at a time, loosen them up, let them all come up evenly, get that spring pressure off the brake rotor. Now that I've done that, I can get an extension on here. Get these out a little bit faster. All right, so this side's loose. Oops. This one's loose. The last one. This should be it. Of course, this thing wants to keep flipping on me. All right. So, take out our bolts. You always want to use a bag. I label everything. Sorry, you keep seeing the top of my head here. It's my solar panels. So, this is going to be, and they're both the same, so it really doesn't matter, but left, final drive, clutch, and I'll know what these bolts are. I've taken enough of them apart. But anyway, bag and tag, right? This is so that you don't lose pieces. It also assists if you're going to replace hardware, right? And these ones don't seem too bad, but if I was to replace all this hardware, I could look right to this bag and I'd see that I'd have 6 bolts and 6 washers. So when I go to my hardware store of choice, I'll know how many that I need, so I get the correct amount. All right, should have 2 more left here. If it's a larger item that you can't put in a bag, get you a tag. And you can write whatever it is on there. You can tie it on, and you won't forget, right? So, very important. What's nice about the digital age we're in is you can take lots of pictures with your cell phone so that you can remember how this stuff goes back together when it comes time to put it together. All right, so there's my left final drive clutch, the 6 bolts for the pressure plate, and now this pressure plate will just lift right off. All right, so here you can see the face of that pressure plate is extremely corroded, lots of rust on there, but I don't have my wire wheel out here. I do have a wire brush. I'm going to clean this up a little bit real quick, and you'll see that it's really not too bad. Honestly, if I got my angle grinder with a wire cup on here, I could wire wheel this down, and it's probably going to be all right. So definitely want to go ahead and take your measurements for thickness to check for wear. Inspect the springs for your fingers on your pressure plate. Make sure that they're not broken or missing or anything. So this one really doesn't look too bad. There's a whole procedure when you put this back together again for setting the pressure plate adjustment. So there's a special tool you need for it that'll bridge across. Basically, when this is on here, it'll set across and measure how high these fingers are, right? So again, that's for another video. This is just for disassembling. So I'm assuming you have a steering clutch issue, you remove your track, remove your final drive, or pulling steering clutches apart. So pressure plate, check. Next, we get into the discs, right? This is what we talked about in the video yesterday. I'll kind of clean this up a little bit here so you can see it looks like a big gear cog, right? This is our final drive shaft. And pull this out here real quick. All right, got this whole thing falling apart on me. So remember, this shaft was splined into the transmission, right? And you got one from this shaft over here. One thing that you always want to check out when you're putting these crawlers back together, before you put these final drives back on, there's a spring that goes between these two shafts. I don't know if you're going to see this in this video, but you know, my left-hand final drive, my right-hand final drive, these splines, these axles get put into the transmission, and there's a spring that goes between these. It's an equalizing spring. So you want to make sure you have that. We'll go through, we're going to check all our bearings and everything, make sure everything's working. This one seems to spin pretty good. I got a little cricket or something from the Jurassic age. But anyway, this is your final drive gear and your final drive. So as your engine's running and sending power back to the transmission, and your transmission's in gear, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, reverse, whatever, it's driving this final drive gear, right? So this gear is going to mesh in with these fiber discs. Of course, it's like putting a square into a round hole here. But anyway, I think you kind of get the point. There we go. So these fiber discs lock into this final drive gear. So if the transmission's turning, these fiber discs are turning, right? And there's a whole stack of them here. Let me go through and pull these out. You can see, of course, everything wants to be rusty and sticky. Do I have a screwdriver? There we go. Let's start poking and prying and prodding here. Come on. There we go. All right. So here's a metal disc. So that would go next. Back to another fiber disc. Another metal disc. I think you get the idea, right? So that's how this clutch is built. Let me pull these off of here again. So it's just a series of fiber, metal, metal. All right. Again, the fiber discs are internally toothed or geared to the final drive shaft, which goes into the transmission. And the metal plates have these 6 tabs. Remember, we talked about that in another video. And those 6 tabs lock into our brake drum. And this brake drum is attached to the gearing basically in the final drive. So when the clutch is engaged in driving, this series of fiber and metal plates are compressed together with the pressure plate, allowing that transmission of torque from the engine through the drive shaft or the propeller shaft through the transmission, your final drive shaft, and through the clutch assembly, the steering clutches, to drive the, there's a pinion gear and a bull gear, and then basically your axle for your sprocket to turn the tracks. Man, that's a mouthful. So when you depress the clutch, for the steering clutches, when you pull back on that steering lever, that throw up bearing puts pressure on this pressure plate, and these springs allow the pressure to be removed from these discs. So it allows the discs to basically slide in between each other. So if these are your fiber discs and these are your metal discs, they're just going to rub and slide past each other and spin, allow it to freewheel. Once I let go of that steering clutch or that steering lever, the pressure plate's going to apply pressure to this disc stack again, and all those sliding discs are now going to close and lock in on each other. And that transmission of power is going to go through this steering clutch and start driving the sprocket for your track. So anyway, this is just a fun process of removing metal disc stack and fiber disc stacks from each other. I want to say, let's see, I haven't looked at these. It's been a while. I want to say, I think there's 6 metal and 7 fiber. Let's see, let's do a count here. Fiber, metal, fiber, metal, fiber, metal. Let's keep pulling this apart. See what we got. Fiber, another fiber. No, I'm just kidding. It's metal. All right, metal. Fiber ones come out easy. Metal ones tend to stick in there a bit. But we're going to clean this all up, right? Before we put this back together, we're going to clean all these components, get everything looking new or replaced if needed. I don't think we're going to need to. They actually seem to look like they're in pretty good shape. Metal, fiber. Who's keeping track? I'll count them again at the end here. All right, getting down to the end. Of course, these last ones are harder to get out because 1, they're tucked down inside, and 2, they're the ones that typically don't move and slide as much, right? Just like anything else, power is going to go through the path of least resistance, right? So finally have our last fiber. So what did I say? I think I said 7 fiber and 6 metal. It might be like 1 more of each. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so 7 metal. There should be 8 fiber. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Go fish. All right, there you go. These are your fiber discs. You can buy these online, eBay, tons of different crawler parts suppliers, right? A couple of the ones I know out there's a website called Keep 'em Crawling. There's another one, Farmer John's Tractor Parts, and then Lavoy, Wilcox. Lavoy's a good dude. They all have all these parts. You can get replacement fiber discs, replacement metal discs, pressure plates, bearings. I mean, you name it. They're the pros at it. So that's it. I mean, at this point, if you were just doing a steering clutch, my recommendation would be to get a good wire wheel, clean up the outside of your brake drum assembly, clean up the inside of the clutch disc pack assembly, get all these channels cleaned out really good, right? You want it so that these metal discs that fit in these tabs, you can see they're kind of hard to go in, but they should be able to slide free, right? Once this is cleaned up and it's down to bare metal and these are cleaned up, they're gonna move great. These fiber discs, same thing, right? Get in here, even if it's just a little wire brush like this, you can get these at Home Depot, and just go in between each of these teeth, right? And make sure you get all surfaces of it, right? My dentist would be super proud of me right now. 2 minutes. Anyway, you can see just from that how much those teeth have really cleaned up, right? You get that surface rust off, these fiber discs are going to slide on this final gear drive a lot easier. So that's it. And then it just gets reassembled in the reverse order. Fiber first, right? Metal, fiber, metal, and so on. All the way through. You get your pressure plate. The pressure plate will get bolted back on. Once you get the pressure plate bolted back on, you want to adjust the clutch. There's a special tool you need. It's a little bar. All these people, Lavoie and Keep 'em Crawling and Farmer John, I believe, they all sell the tool. And that tool, it's just a metal bar. My buddy Ricky's got it right now, but you can use it to adjust the steering clutch adjustment, and you can also use it for the engine main drive clutch adjustment. They're different settings, but that tool has two different steps basically, and it just bridges over and it'll let you know if you need to adjust it in or out or not. So basically, there's clips that you can pop out of here. Some of these have like another. There's my handy dandy pointer. I don't have it today, but there's another little piece of flat metal that'll loop around there. I guess kind of to cover it, but anyway, you can see in there there's an adjustment bolt, and then underneath it there's a lock nut. So you'd loosen the lock nut, and then you'd turn that adjustment bolt, and as you turn that adjustment bolt up this way, it's going to rock this clutch finger down, right? And then as you thread it in, it's going to rock it back up. So basically, it's going to make all of these clutch fingers the same height, because when the throwout bearing touches these three fingers, you want it to hit all three at the same time. That's the goal. I hope that was in frame. So the throwout bearing to rub on all these three sections at the same time. So anyway, we'll go through that whole procedure. I'll show you the tool. I'll do all that once everything's cleaned up, and we put this bad boy together. But that's it. I mean, there's really not much to it. The worst part is what I have next. It'll be in the next video. Taking apart the final drives, getting this this pinion shaft out, and I got to drop the. There's basically like a little oil pan here, and all the oil is going to come out. It's gear oil. It smells like dead dinosaurs. It's super bad. Gear oil's the nastiest stuff. But anyway, we get all that cleaned out. We'll pull this bearing cap off. We'll get the axles pushed out and cleaned out, and basically, hopefully, take my good parts that I'm hoping most of this stuff's good inside here, and transfer it over to my new handy dandy Whamadyne final drive that we picked up yesterday. So you can kind of see how that works here. You got the outer cover here. What we're looking at on the inside, this is with this brake drum removed, right? Here's a part of the old seal, but there's a seal and bearings. It's part of the bearing cage still there. Same thing at the bottom. This hole up here is just for the brake lever at the top. We'll just slide in there and guides in. So that's what that's for. These two posts or pegs at the bottom just help with alignment, and basically your brake band will go on one or the other depending on which side they're on. These final drives are the same, so it doesn't matter. I could take the one off my left and put it on the right. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. The only thing that you'll see different, there are two different styles. Well, there's really three different styles of final drive housings, but the Lindeman kind of is its own thing. It's got its own final drive. Instead of setting vertical like this when it's on the tractor, it's actually tilted forward a little bit. It's just how it's made. I really don't know why. Probably because it wasn't meant to be a bulldozer in the first place. But I said it. I said bulldozer. Crawler. It wasn't meant to be a crawler. It was a John Deere B tractor, a BO. Anyway, so the Lindeman final drive looks a little different. The MC and the 40s, I don't know when it transitioned over. You can put a remark in the comments. Somebody will know, but it didn't have these extra supports on here. It was just basically a kind of a smooth final drive. In fact, the last crawler that I restored, it was the yellow 40, what was it, 1956, I think it was. But anyway, it had one of this style final drive housings on one side and one of the older without these supports on the other. So it doesn't matter. They all bolt up the same. They all have the same internals. There's no difference. It's just these ones have these extra ribs or bracing for support so that it doesn't crack like this one did, even though it has these special supports. Anyway, that's it for today's video. That's how you take apart the steering clutch. We'll go ahead and in the next video continue taking this brake housing off, our brake drum, and start getting gears and whatnot out. So anyway, hopefully that helps you if you're planning on doing steering clutches. And again, there'll be another video down the line of actually installing either new components or these ones once they've been cleaned up, and we'll go over the procedure for adjusting everything. So All right. Thanks as always for watching. I appreciate you. Peace.